Hello and welcome to the Coon Hunting University podcast. This is your host, Tyler Duncan, and like always, class is in session. Coon Hunting University is brought to you by Conkey's Outdoors, hunting and hound supply store. Find out more at conkeys.outdoors.com. And Superior Hunting Lights. Superior, step up to the max. Use discount code CHU podcast at checkout and receive 5% off on nighthunters.com. Oh, we got a story for y'all today. So me and Mr. Eddie Simmions made the trip up to Adamsville, Tennessee, and did an interview with Mr. Barry Kiddy, Mr. Billy Bell, and Mr. Mike Ferguson, also known as Fergie. So this is going to be a 3-part series, just because it was a 3-hour interview, and I really didn't have to edit much out because these guys, we just sat back and let them go, and they told the story. You are going to hear some stuff that you've never heard before about the Wipeout line of dogs. I'm not even going to lie. It is just, it blew me away. So on this first part, you're going to hear about Candy and Zeb. And then on the second part, you're going to hear about Coy and Moose. And then the third part is going to be about Zeb again, Zeb 3, and they're going to talk more about Mr. Ronnie Nickens and Coma and tell some good stories throughout this, and it is just awesome. It really is, and it's just, they just get better to me. You know, I mean, I've listened to all of them, of course. I did the editing, but they just, it gets better as you go. For, you know, it's great. It really is. It's hard to get better, but it does. I'm excited about this, and I think everybody's going to really, really enjoy it. And I want to give a shout out to Mr. Barry Kiddy. Thank you so much for opening up your home to us and allowing us to come up in there and do this interview. He has a beautiful place there in Tennessee, and he's hunting a Wipeout dog still. You know, he's got Wipeout Colt 45, and of course I have to shout out Mr. Billy Bell and Mr. Eddie Simmions for making this happen, because if it wasn't for those two individuals, I don't believe I'd have got Mr. Mike and Mr. Barry to sit down with us. So I have to just, I mean, they set this up. I didn't, you know, they were at the Black IP Classic, and Mr. Eddie texted me and said, how would you like to do an interview with Billy Bell? I said, man, I mean, I would love it, you know. Then the next day he texted me and said, well, how would you like to just go up to Adamsville and let's just do an interview with all of them? I said, man, that would be great. And lo and behold, they made it happen, and I can't thank them enough. I thank Mr. Mike for even sitting down with us and doing it. I know a lot of people on Facebook asked me about Mr. Clay Young and Mr. Tam Young. Mr. Clay Young was at work while we were doing this interview, but if he's listening to this, which I'm sure he is, me and Mr. Eddie, we're coming for you. All right, we're gonna do you and Mr. Tam if we can. If the stars line and it's able to work out, we would love to. And hey, if the listeners want to hear that one too, let us know. Because I mean, for as many people that said they were as excited about this interview, there was just as many people that said you should have done Mr. Clay and Mr. Tam while you were up there. And I mean, but we couldn't make it happen because Mr. Clay was at work, and we really want to get it done. Hopefully we'll get that done eventually. And of course, Billy Bell's still hunting a dog with Wipeout in him, shifter. And Mr. Mike Ferguson, he's still hunting some of the original lines, you know, that go directly back to Moose. So it's really cool to see that these guys are still hunting this line of dogs, and I think that shows a lot about it. And don't forget, we have our 2020 Mississippi PKC Youth Hunt will be March 5th. So make sure you mark your calendars and come on down. It's a full day of fun for the kids, like we've said in the previous podcast. If you want to find out more information, check out the Facebook page for it. I want to tell you about another youth hunt that's going on Saturday, February 26, 2022 in Laurel, Mississippi. This is going to be a $30 entry youth hunt doubleheader. It's a 1-hour cast, must split. All cast winners receive $100. And if you're planning on bringing your kid to the Mississippi State Youth Hunt and you're in the area, I think that this hunt would be a great opportunity to introduce them into hunting, you know, in a controlled environment with other youth handlers. And this is the weekend before the Mississippi State Youth Hunt. It'll be February 26th. And you can contact Mr. Mark Sumrall, or you can visit prohound.com for more information. So without further ado, I'm going to quit yapping. Here's the Wipeout story. Y'all sit back and enjoy. So we're down here in Adamsville, Tennessee. Me and Mr. Eddie Simmions drove up here and to interview Mr. Barry Kiddy, Mr. Billy Bell, and Mr. Mike Ferguson. So I'm going to ask each of you to kind of give a little background on yourself and just tell a little bit about yourself, and start whoever wants to.
Well, I'm Barry Kiddy. I am 60 years old, but as I hate to say that, sounds like an old man. I own a termite business, been in the termite business 42 years, and been in the business for myself for 33 years. Started a crawl space company 3 years ago to go along with that. Married Tanya Kiddy. I got 4 children, Brian, Colton, Michaela, and Braden. Been coon hunting ever since I was probably 12, 13 years old. I always had a squirrel dog. All I've ever known is just work and hunting.
I'm Mike Ferguson. I've lived here in McNair County all my life. Coon hunting since I was 13 years old. I'm married with my wife, Melanie. We got a daughter, 21 years old. Takes a lot of my time up till now. Now she's gone most of the time. But I've been hunting everything all my life. I've been working for Barry since about 1991. I guess what we're going to talk about today is a lot of the Wipeout dogs, and that's one of the reasons that I think they've come as far as they have because of the time and effort that we've put in them the last 30 years. There's lots of good dogs out there, lots of great breeders, but it seems to me like when they changed the super stakes to where people could breed to their own dogs and super stake the litter, it seemed like it took away from the stud dogs, and people kind of got away from going and breeding. When I first started hunting, there was, just certain stocks of dogs. There's Lipper dogs, and there's Sackett dogs, and Finley River dogs and stuff like that. And, you could kind of pick out a stud dog by what they was throwing back in those days, and everybody would go breed to the world champ and this and that. And now they've kind of just bred to their own dogs, and it's kind of filtered it down to where there's nothing but the same thing out there. And the Wipeout dogs is, they've stood the test of time. Everybody that's had one, they liked it. If they liked it, they bred that way, and that's the way we did. And the females that I bred over the years had a lot to contribute with it, but we never would have had the dogs that we had if it hadn't been for the effort that several people down here, Billy Bell and Barry and everybody. It's just been a long process, and the dogs that reproduced, the females we used to breed was always bred to a great dog. You might not get a great pup. That was my theory. But sooner or later, I think the great pup was going to come out, whether it was a grand pup or a great grand pup. I could go on and on and on about it, but I'll let Billy tell where his history and stuff goes on it.
I'm Billy Bell. I kind of grew up in a coon hunting family. My dad, that was his only hobby, was coon hunt. And so when my brother come around, Avery, first, he was 9 years older, so him and dad kind of got started, and I come along 9 years later, and me thinking about it, my mom had to hear a lot of coon hunting talk sitting around breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's a lot of conversation that went into talking about dogs. I'm married now. I'm 43, be 44 here in a few months. I've lived in Parsons, Tennessee my whole life. Work at a utility district, and got 2 girls, Aubrey and Mia, and they taking up all my time now. I don't get to pleasure hunt like I used to, but still go to a few competition hunts and enjoy that. I always have enjoyed the competitiveness of the hunts. That's about it. I guess we'll start talking about the Wipeout dogs. It's kind of why we're here.
I thought we was going to talk about Kiddy pest control for a bit. Huh?
We can. Anybody listening can get $10 off.
He's sliding me $5. I don't know. No, but so let's talk about maybe before the Wipeout dogs. Were y'all together before the Wipeout dogs?
Well,
or did that bring y'all together?
No, I knew Mike. I don't know how much longer. Let's see. Brian was 38. I mean, he's 38 years old, so probably 40 years, probably. And I moved over there close to where Mike lives. So he was coon hunting with some older guys there, and I was into coon hunting a little bit, and I just, man, he was younger than me, but when he'd get off at school bus, he was ringing my phone, you know, and so that was my first wife. She'd say, That's Mike on the phone. He's wanting to go hunting again tonight. And it was just, I mean, it was every night. We just become friends and buddies before the Wipeout ever started. You know, we didn't have no bought dogs or nothing. I mean, you might give $100. I give $600 for the best dog I'd ever had at that time, Little River Mike. But, you know, that really, that's how we all got together. I mean, I always had a squirrel dog. My dad always kept a good squirrel dog, and we had beagles, we had bird dogs, but I always had a really good squirrel dog. But a boy on the school bus gave my sister a red bone pup. That's really what got me interested in it. So she wanted the pup, but she didn't hunt. So we got to coon hunting a little bit, or it would tree a possum, it would tree a squirrel. So we bred, she got about 2 years old and we bred her, and then next thing you know, we had a litter of pups. Well, 2 or 3 of them were black and tans, and we bred her to a son of woodpecker. You know, we thought we was going to get something good, but the daddy wasn't no good, and evidently I hunted them pups for 2 or 3 years. I mean, a lot. Not one coon did they ever tree. That's what you call a dedicated coon hunter. You go 2 or 3 years and you never tree a coon.
I don't even know if you consider a coon hunter at that point, are you?
The mother died right after she had the pups. She got run over, and then so I didn't have nothing. You know, I thought I'm gonna train them, and I named them just what they white nose, shorty, floppy. That was their names, you know. But none of them was any good, and so anyway, and I got moved over there where Mike was. We got to hunting, and we just built a friendship, and then, you know, eventually come to the Wipeout dogs. He had the mother of Moose, and we bred Zeb, and that's on down the story.
So, y'all got anything else y'all want to talk about prior to getting into the Wipeout story? Is there anything we need to know before we start?
Well, Billy, he was just young, but like I said, his dad, we had a mutual friend, Lawrence Pettigrew, that was, his dad was a mutual friend. You know, Lawrence and Bill Bell was like brothers when it come to it, you know, which Bill furnished the money part, Lawrence just did the other. But Lawrence would keep a good dog. Bill believed in Lawrence. And so Billy would come down, Avery would come down. I hunted with Avery way before I did Billy, and then, but so Billy would come and spend the night with me. We'd go hunting. Even when I had old Zeb, when old Zeb was a puppy, like 10 months old, Bill and me and him and Lawrence, we all went hunting that night. And Zeb treated a coon, I think, and Billy wanted to buy half of that pup. Now, how old was you? You wasn't very old.
Well, if we back up, this is what, you know, I was wanting to start kind of with Candy and tell it. And, I can go where Barry is thinking.
Yeah, it did start with Candy because I loaned him Candy.
The first youth hunt. Now, this was back when you took the top 16 youth kids went to the youth world. You had to win a regional hunt, and they was one at Lexington. And Dad knew Candy was a good dog, hearing Lawrence talk about her. And Clay had come in from a boat, and they run her hard that 1 month. Now, this was back when, in Coma's time, me and Dollar Gin Rummy that Bill Goodrum and Darren Martin owned, and you had Candy owned by, Barry owned her, and Clay hunted her, especially when he was off the boat. And so they'd been winning quite a bit with her, and, knew she was a good hound, knew she could compete at high level. At the time, we didn't have nothing as good as for competition hunting. I think Dad had mainly pleasure dogs, most of them. But anyway, so this youth hunt was coming on, and a few nights before, me and Dad drove to Lawrence's and met. I think Fergie was even there, and we went hunting that night so I could hear her. And it wasn't long when you turned Candy loose, you was gonna hear her. She was pretty easy to call. Had a straight chopped mouth, chopped on a track, chopped on a tree. You just had to listen for her to come up, basically from. And so I heard her one night, to say, and the next night I heard her at Lexington at the youth hunt, won it all that night.
Yeah, you'd win 2 back to back.
Yeah.
Kids had to go out, hunt 2 hours, go back, hunt 2 hours with non-hunting judges. And, I remember you winning that. And then I think Bill wanted to partner.
Barry had been hunting with Lawrence a lot, and we had sent this blue dog that I had called Glass Eye Blue. Mr. Eddie, remember him really well. But anyway, Barry had hunted with Blue, and maybe come to Dad or Dad come to Barry. I can't remember how it was exactly, but they decided to partner in the 2 dogs. And that's after I'd won with Candy and liked her. And but Barry had already bred Candy to Coma. I think Mike and Barry went down to Nickens and made that happen. But I remember seeing them when they was baby pups. And I know I'm going to sound crazy saying this, but when I first seen Zeb, he was just a little bitty pup. And I seen the whole litter. She had a big litter. I can't remember.
11. She had 11.
11 in that litter. And I think Barry kept 3, the best I can remember.
I kept him and Trudy.
And wasn't it one more you kept for a little while and then so?
Well, there was just 3 males. I think Randy Jacquard and Fargo Guthrie and them had the other male.
White Boy or something they called him. But anyway, I'm looking at him as a pup, and it's like, looking at the whole litter, and it's like, I don't know the way I seen it, I could see like a light shining on Ozell. Just look, he just stood out in my mind. It's just like, there's the golden goose. And I was a young kid, and I was wanting a pup bad to fool with. But my dad never let me have one, because he thought I'd get tired of it, and just, he'd have to deal with it. And because Barry can tell you, when Dad looked for a dog, he'd call Lawrence, or he'd call men he trusts, and put the word out he was wanting to buy one. But if they said 5, 6, 7, 8 year old, that didn't turn off my dad. That was
6-year-old finished female.
Female, that's right.
That's what he wanted.
Nothing
that fight. He wanted something them boys could carry to a hunt, and they was going to be safe with it.
So the story Barry was starting to tell a while ago, it was in 94, because I remember we had the worst ice storm at that time that I can ever remember. Everything was froze up here. Me and Clay and Barry drove to Ozark, Alabama to a pro hunt. And on the way back from that pro hunt, I'd mentioned Barry I said, will you sell half a Zeb? And at this time, he was probably, I don't know, 7 or 8 months old, 9 maybe.
Yeah, he was born in 93.
Yeah. So this would have been close. February 94.
He was about 10, 11 months old, just by the time he was starting to tree.
And I said, Barry, you sell Zeb? And he said, I might sell you half of it. And we worked out a price, I think maybe $500 if I can remember right. And Barry said, I'll take it. And so Dad was going to pick me up there at Lawrence's. And we got back to Lawrence's, and Dad walked in. I said, you pay Barry $500. I bought half a Zeb. He said, no. He said, you bought half of him, you'll have to move in with Kiddy. He said, he didn't want me to have a pup.
Well, if you remember, I remember that now. It was Super Bowl. It's February.
Yeah.
So we went outside.
And turned him loose.
I said, I'm going to turn Zeb loose. He's 11 months old. We turned him right out from the house. Of course, he went about 300 yards and he struck and he left on a deer. And 2.5 hours later, I found him at Bethel Springs. It's 10 or 11 miles from here. Somebody called me and had him.
And he had one of them old, you remember them old tracking collars? What was it? The big one.
John.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Barry would pull that antenna out. When we come out of the house after he turned him loose, we turned him loose and then went back in the house.
Watch the Super Bowl.
Yeah, for a little bit, and we come back out. You couldn't even get a beep on him. That's how far he was. We had to get to driving.
5 or 6 miles before we got a beep on him, and he was about 9 or 10 miles over. So, I mean, that's just the way he was, though. I mean, I remember when he wouldn't go a step, you know, Fergie and him laugh. Clay laughs, he
wouldn't cross water, and he'd come in and make a bed bay.
Yeah.
But when he got to rolling, he was rolling. He used to run a fox around here all the time, and he run that fox so much, and we always claimed he done it because you could see where a dog was treed on it, but he treed a fox out here on the side of the highway, and the fox slipped up there. I don't know if he was tired or just made a mistake, but anyway, he hung his head in a fork, and that fox you could see him from the road, and he hung there for years.
Yeah, just hanging there.
And I know Zeb had treated that red fox, and it just was either give out or something. But that dog, I could come in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and me and Barry would carry him hunting over here in daylight and tree coons. And that night, we'd carry him back hunting, hunt to midnight, and then Clay would come over here at midnight and get him and carry him on hunting again. You know, I mean, he never rested. He was in a dog box, I'd say 3/4 of his life. It was amazing at the heart he had. Who gets up at 8 o'clock in the morning and hunts a dog when, you know, it's been in a dog box all night and coon hunting all night, and then hunt to 10, 11 o'clock in the day? He had a big heart.
How old was he when Clay got to be part of him?
You had already sold him to Dowdy, didn't you?
I sold him, yeah. Don Dowdy come into some money. So I sold him to Don. No. Yeah, I think. I can't really 100%. I did sell him to Dowdy and got him back. But I think before that, I sold him Chuck Mattingly, I think. Chuck had bought Coma, and he called me wanting to buy the best dog he could find out of Coma. So anyway, he wasn't but about 13, 14 months old. And Chuck offered me $3,500. I thought, man, I can buy a coon dog for that. And so I sold him Chuck. And then, boy, I looked around. I did find a dog, Charles Vanderford. I went partners with him on Little Creek Chopper, and I really liked him. But I wanted that pup back so bad, it was just killing me. And I called Chuck every week and asked him, he said, something ever happens, Barry, I'll let you have him back. And Chuck ended up getting bone marrow, had to have a bone marrow transplant. He had cancer, and he called me. He said, Barry, do you want this dog? He said, I'm going to sell him. I can't hunt. They'd already lost Coma. So anyway, I got him back, and some crazy reason. And I sold Dowdy half of him or all of him, and then I got him right back. And then Clay was wanting part of him, and I remember Mike said, why are you letting Clay have half that dog? I said, well, Clay Young to me to this day is the very best handler in the whole world to me. He is the most calmest, coolest. He'll strike for 100 and it'll be plus. He'll strike for 25 and it'll be minus. He just the best I ever seen at that. And I thought, me and him partners up, we'll be good. And I hate Clay Young ain't here today to defend himself or talk, because he's 100% part of all this. None of this happened without Clay Young. And I called him and told him about it. He said, y'all having that podcast and I ain't even going to have to talk. I said, I'm going to mention you because I said, you big part of this, and I hate that he's not in it.
When I asked Kiddy why he sold half of them, he said, well, half of 100 better than none.
Half of a truck, because we was thinking about that truck, and then the next month, you had to be top pup. There was only 12 pups went then. It wasn't like it is now. You had to win more money than any dog. And I remember the cover of the Pro-Am said Wipeout in March, and because we had won it and got to go to that truck hunt. So I didn't have a clue we was going to win it. I was just hoping that we would, and everything turned out.
Where did that Wipeout name come from, Barry? How'd you come up with that?
Wipeout name come from Jack Duncan. When I got Candy, she was just powerful. She's gonna strike 100, tree 100 just about all the time. Now it's gonna be good or bad, however that went. But you could bet it's 100 and 100 every time you win. And Jack Duncan would just say, "Kiddy wiped us out again. Kiddy wiped, old Candy wiped us out." So I just come up with somehow that stuck. I named her Wipeout Candy. And, and that stuck. And then when I bred, Tacoma, which I guess that's another story, but I was thinking about, had a lot of dogs on my mind, and Nickens wanted me to name him Flat Rock, but I just couldn't make myself do it.
So what made you cross her with Coma? Conkeys Outdoors knows that keeping up with the latest in hunting technology can be expensive. That's why they are proud to offer amazing financing options, from 30 days same as cash to 0% interest for 6, 9, 12, and even 18 months, depending on your credit score and the amount you spend. If you've been eyeballing that new thermal or want to upgrade to the latest in tracking system technology, go find out more on the web at conkeys.outdoors.com, or if you're in the Hastings, Florida area, stop by and visit. They'd love to have you. Conkeys Outdoors, houndsman helping houndsman.
Well, I was hunting in the hunts. The year that I bred Candy, I was third in the nation in open events.
Third in the state, too.
Third in the state also. So that's how tough it was here. Coma was first. $1 Million Gin Rummy was second. And I was third, but I had a litter of pups also during that time. But I'd hunted I narrowed it down to 2 dogs out of all the dogs I'd hunted with, which I liked Cracker, but I was going to breed the Crockett. Crockett and Coma was my what I narrowed everything down to. And I'd hunted with Coma so much that I thought that's what I'm going to breed to. So I called Ronnie and made it happen. And me and Fergie drove up there and was going to hunt. We got up there a little bit late, and he went ahead and turned him loose. I think we went over and dropped him one time, and them bad Murfreesboro heels.
Nick never did put his light on. He had something to do or something, but he done obligated himself, told us he's going to turn him loose for us, and we'd never been hunting with him. And the dog just sinked in the country, and, like a dog's supposed to. He did make a wrong tree. That's the only tree he made. And, but anyway, we still bred.
In Zeb, did you see more of Candy in him or more of Coma? And what traits did you see from both, kind of?
If you looked at Zeb, you looked at Coma. He got Coma's appearance. He got a lot of things from Coma. I won't say he did get a lot of things from Coma, but mouth and desire and tracking. I mean, Coma's a good track dog, but Candy was an outstanding track dog, tree dog. I seen more of Candy than I did Coma in characteristics. Looks, he looked like Coma. He had them slant eyes and that black on his muzzle and the big dog just like Coma.
Coma was a real intelligent dog, what I observed about him. I mean, Ronnie could get out there with him. Me and Clay went up there and stayed with him one night. We went to open event hunt. And Ronnie would get out there and throw a Frisbee with that dog, and that dog would run a Frisbee down and catch it. How many hounds you see would do that? None that I ever. And Zeb, I feel like, had his intelligence with Candy's, like what Barry was saying. Candy, to me, I've only maybe can count on one hand how many dogs, hounds that I thought had equal nose that she had. She could smell, I mean, phenomenal. I think Barry can tell you, they was at a hunt one night and they had seen a coon cross the road, and maybe he won early, and when they went back to the club, sat around there a while waiting on the other cast to come back. They was going to hunt the late round off. He went back to where he seen that coon cross the road, and what was it, 2 hours later?
2 hours later, she was struck and treed in a minute, and no dog ever barked.
Yeah. So that shows you right there the tracking and nose that she had was, and she had, we'd always talk about her, she had 3 nights that you was probably going to experience when you cut her loose. She had a night that she would run, stay on the ground and run. She didn't think about treeing. And then you might see a night that out of every tree in the woods, and you wouldn't see a coon. When the Wipeout name come in, she would just invent coons. I mean, it was just so easy and effortless to her. She'd make
unbeatable them nights.
Yeah,
unbeatable. There was no comparison.
And she had that tone and how she double located on some trees. Now she wouldn't do that every tree. She wouldn't locate every tree the same. But when she give out ho 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 ho, it was over. And it didn't matter if it was 120 degrees outside. She would tree the same on that tree as it would if it was 0 degrees. I mean, she was the same rhythm, not every breath, but just steady. Oh. It's almost like she had
with her chest against the tree.
Mm-hmm. And I tell you something else about her. It didn't matter when the sun come up, she knew it was over. You could always count on her coming out. Me and Barry went to hunt. They hunted it off in Perry or Paris, one up there, and we stayed out all night till I knew daylight come. We was gonna get her, and we finally drove around close back in. You know, I wish we'd had Garmin's back in. It would make it a lot easier and simple with the dogs like it hunted like that. But she would always come out when the sun come up.
The thing about Candy, you talking about the nose she had. Me and Barry drove out on the cast one night, and this fella had a English dog and another dog in the cast was trailing, and they had trailed in this same holler, and hadn't went nowhere. And Candy had been gone, and she happened to just come back through that area there, and she went right there. She hushed for just a little bit, dropped off in there where those dogs was, and struck with them. And just in a matter of minutes, she was treed with the coon. And, you know, they had been fumbling around in there for an hour. And that was the thing about her. She didn't trail. Every track, if she struck it, she was going to be moving. And, it was no downtime. She didn't strike a track she couldn't handle. She struck it. She was going to move it. She's going to tree it. And she passed that on.
You know, on a cast I was on with Ozeb years ago, we had 3 pretty good dogs out there. I thought they was kind of wadded up doing just back and forth. And Ozeb, he'd kind of took a little shortcut around there and chased something for a while. And, hey, he showed back up in there in less than a minute. He treed that coon. They had been trailing around there for 20 minutes. And I thought to myself, well, now ain't that something? Mm-hmm. That was impressive. It really was.
Yeah, we was at Columbus, Mississippi one night, the Mississippi State hunt, and Billy was down there that night, and Zeb was just young then, which he died young, but he was, I don't really remember how old he was. Anyway, Barry was hunting Chopper in the state hunt, and he got in top 4. Well, I come in, and Billy said, if you've won your cast, Barry wants you to hunt it off. He said, because he's having judges. I think you had to judge the state hunt, didn't you?
Maybe. I was there.
I don't remember. But anyway, I went out there and got my boots and stuff on because this guy wanted to hunt it off. I was ready to split. And he said, no, I've always wanted to hunt with old Zeb. And then when Billy told me that, I said, well, I'm going to hunt. Well, I went out there and got my boots on, come back in. He said, oh, man. He said, I'm just kidding with you. He said, I don't really want to. He said, we'll just split. Go home. And I said, no, I'm ready. And we turned loose, and Zeb struck for 100. Theirs all got to striking out there. Zeb went in there probably 700-800 yards, and I heard him come on a tree. And he treed there for maybe 10-15 seconds, if that much. Down he come, went trailing on in yonder, and moving on. And treed, had a coon. went in there and I cut him off that tree. Instead of me sending him on away from the way he had been, I knew what he had done in there. So I just sent him right back the way he come, and he went back in there and made about 2 ground barks and come treed on the tree that he had located on. He's going to tree the last coon up. And he went back in there, he was 2 coon, he treed that coon. The hunt was over, and their 3 dogs are still trailing in the same area they was in when the hunt started.
He was such a special dog. I mean, this is all I've ever done is hunted and fool with these hounds, and I still think he's got the most ability of any hound I've ever seen. Just every way. If he was running a deer, he was running to catch it. If he was treeing coons, he just treated. They was just so easy to him. It was just you just had to see it to believe it.
And he was running a lot of coons that we thought wasn't coons, but now he was a swap over artist also. So, you could be sitting at the road ready to kill him thinking he's running a deer, and he'd come treed on a coon just before he get to you. I've done it several times, but hunting him, people just wouldn't believe. I mean, we were young. We didn't know no better, I guess, but we would hunt. And that's the truth. Me and Lawrence Pettigrew would hunt him in the morning. Lawrence always talked about treeing coons in daytime. Well, I've carried a lot of dogs since then in daytime and never tree. He would trail a coon up in daytime and have it and see it every day. Every day we had a coon on the outside. And we'd usually hunt from, by the time I got the workers gone to 8, we'd hunt till 11 o'clock. Something like that, 10 or 11 o'clock, 2 or 3 hours. Well, then I'd go on back to work, and I'd go hunting every night. So when it got dark, me and somebody we'd go hunting. But Clay when I got Clay in on partners, we sort of got off of him. Everett King was hunting. He worked midnights or second shift. So he got off every night about midnight or 1 o'clock. So Clay would stay home with his wife till then, and him and Everett would hunt. They'd hunt to daylight. So, I mean, there's a lot of times that Zeb got hunted, I guess, 18 hours in a day. You talking about morning and then all night long. And that happened night after night after night. He never quit. He never had no power. When you opened that dog box up, he was coming out.
Never stiff.
And athletic. I mean, the people just won't believe. Billy talks about him as a pup, but when they were little pups, Nickens won a pro hunt over here, and I was guiding it, and we stopped back by. He said, "I want to see your pups," and I just turned them out, and they were athletic wise. There was no comparison. He looked like a thoroughbred amongst the rest of the litter. Or amongst anything. He could stand flat-footed and jump in a 4-foot tailgate, and you never hear him hit. Moose could do the same thing. He could run. I would run him on 4-wheeler, and the rest of the pups would just be just getting it, just flying, and pads would tear off their feet. And he'd be just like he was in just a slow gallop, just as easy like a thoroughbred. From the top of his back to the bottom of his chest, he wasn't thick. He was just deep. He was deep from, I don't know, he probably had 12 or 13 inches from the bottom of his chest to the top of it. It was unbelievable.
Or do you have anything else to add on Zeb?
Well, I enjoyed some hunts with him. Me and Billy was talking last week. I didn't even know Billy was the youngster on the cast.
I was just spectating out there
in Texas.
And they had a hunt.
Was you on the pro runoff when I won it in Starkville Pro Championship? What Tam was on the cast?
I was judging.
You was judging, huh? Okay.
Hey, yeah, that was a good story too. But we'll get back over on Billy. I didn't realize at that time that was Billy, but we was talking.
We all went. I remember that year. It was, I think, 96. I think it was 96 the year I graduated, and we drove to. Is it Personville or Pearson?
Personville, Texas.
Yeah, that's right there, the home of Cleve, and Jimmy Ferguson. We went down probably a few nights early before the hunt and pleasure hunted. And I know me and Clay went hog hunting one day with Cleve. But anyway, getting back to the story with Zeb, I remember Joe, I was just went along. I got beat Friday night, and this was in a semis, top 16, and Eddie was in with a dog called Magnum.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Scott, I can't remember. He was either hunting something out of Maverick, I think, or MacGyver. Didn't he have a dog called
Yeah.
Lost Mountain MacGyver? But I don't think it was him. It was maybe something off of him. And then Mr. Guy Manning was hunting maybe JR, one of them he had. And I remember I was going out there, Cleve had guided, and Clay was handling. Like Barry said, Clay was as calm and cool out there on a cast as anybody. And he knew how to hunt Zeb, because most times Zeb would go out there and tree the very first coon out of the truck, but he most time wouldn't stay on it. And I remember that night, just right out of the truck, Clay was struck for 100, and a minute maybe or two out there, he just come treed. Clay didn't say nothing. Zeb treed there a little bit, and then he was gone. Magnum, I think, got in there, and I can't remember what you was struck for, Eddie, but I remember you was leading the cast coming off that coon. Magnum stayed, you took 100. I can't remember if Guy and Dave even got any of it, but I remember we come off.
I looked good out the gate.
Yeah. I remember coming off that tree, and I seen this dog do it so many times. They would have a coon treed. By the time you walk in there and score that coon and come off, he'd be sitting somewhere in that country, usually by then, treed or fixing to get treed with one. And that night, I remember he was already treed, and Clay treed him in there then. And we walked in there, so Clay ended up with 200 on that one. And then I think Guy's dog might have gotten the ground, and anyway, he ended up withdrawing, and Dave ended up withdrawing, so it left you and Clay for the rest of the cast. And I remember this old Zeb striking tracks and working them through there and getting treed, and whoever was judging that night put stationary on Clay, and about that time Magnum would get to open them about where Zeb had struck at and venture on in there towards him and back him, and Clay just would tree just whatever he needed to tree at just to stay ahead.
He dominated.
Yeah, and so at the end of the cast, I told Clay, I said, well, Eddie would have quit if you'd have treated him a little quicker on some of the others. You'd have got it over with. Because Clay drawed it out. Yeah.
The reason they talk about Zeb leaving all these trees, because he hated to hunt. He actually hated all those dogs and all those people. If you was just with Zeb with a rifle, that's when he showed. I mean, you tree 5 singles every night just in a little bit and be back home. Well, and it'd be through the world. He hated it. Absolutely.
Tell him some of the stories about y'all used to show him a gun.
Yeah, we'd get to the hunt and we'd pull the gun out, and we'd show him the gun, let him smell the gun. Just thought, boy, he thinks we gonna go coon killing. And we hunted out of a boat a lot, so we drew a time or two at people that would be hunting out of a boat. Oh, he'd have 800 plus. If you hunt out of a boat, he'd invent coons. He thought it was going to kill him. He hated it.
He treed a coon for the coon. That dog treed because of the coon. He didn't tree because he liked to tree.
Yeah,
he treed because there's a coon there.
Because he had to, because the coon climbed. And everybody would always say, well, he's running junk, or running junk. And my old buddy over here, old friend, he said, I don't know what Zeb is running, but whatever he's running runs right at a coon. And he would. He and if he barked, I mean, they say babble, all that. He didn't have no babble in him. He'd be after something with blood in it. That's all I can tell you. It might not be a coon, but he was after something with blood in it, and I had more confidence in him of treeing a coon when he opened on it. And having that coon when I got into that tree, was anything I ever hunted.
Hey, y'all, this is Tyler, your host of Coon Hunting University. I'm here to talk to you about extreme dog fuel. Whether you're looking for a 30-20, 24-20, 26-18, or a 2212. They have any type of food that us coon hunters need. I'd like to issue a thank you to them for making Coon Hunting University podcast possible. So go to extremedogfuel.com and find a retailer near you and give them a try. I love it. I've been blown away. I swapped to the 3020 and I honestly hadn't looked back. I mean, I love it. I really do. And I encourage everyone to go over there to extremedogfuel.com. Check them out. Find a retailer near you. Read all about it. You'll see why I swapped to Extreme Dog Fuel.
I know me and Barry was hunting one night, had him and Chopper. And they treed a coon. We was on the edge of a big creek. We shot the coon out, and it fell in the creek there and sunk. Well, we was trying to get him down in the creek, which we didn't see Zeb. And Chopper was off in there hunting the coon. And he finally got the coon. Well, I got down in there, and we got the coon back up there on the bank. And I said, where's Zeb? And Barry said, I don't know. I ain't seen him. And we got that coon away from Chopper, and we're standing there listening. You could barely hear Zeb done treat again. I mean, it's all you could do to hear him. And we had just shot this coon out, and it just fell in a creek, and we had just got it out, and that dog was sitting probably 6-7 of a mile with another coon tree. That's how simple it was to him.
It was so simple for him to tree a coon. That's why he didn't care to leave. He'd leave because of dog. He didn't want a dog. He didn't really want them dogs in there on him, treeing with him. We hunt him in too many hunts. That caused a lot of that. We hunt him in a bunch. We could have done a lot of things different with him if we'd have had it to done. He still won $58,000, and he was within $400 of being all-time money winner when he died. And the night he died, Clay they just left that pro hunt that Billy was talking about. He just won that pro event, and then we went to Black and Tan Days at Sullivan, Alabama. Clay was going to hunt Misty. So I thought, well, I'll go down on Friday night. I'll hunt an open event. He said, well, just come down there. And then he said, you can leave Zeb. I'm going to spend the night. So we had noticed Zeb was only 3 years old. I mean, we had him tested and checked and whatever always give him heartworm medicine, anything else. He was a little bit of a finicky eater. You had to keep him something good to eat all the time. He wasn't like the dog I got now. You can put the bucket down and reach and get it in 30 seconds. He wasn't that way. He's more of a finicky eater. But so we went hunting in that cast that night, and I had 200 on a coon. Now, one thing I'm going to go back to is I think in that cast where they went to Texas, I think early round, I don't think Zeb did anything. The late round, he ended up getting in it. We got to noticing that when we would first travel him for a little while, we just thought he was hunt burnt. But he died from a disease. I can't think of its long name, but it's actually lung flukes. Now, lung flukes starts in a snail. The snail has to be eaten by a crawfish or a freshwater crab. The dog has to eat the crawfish or the crab. That's the only way you can get lung flukes.
Or the coon is eat that crab that, when you shoot it out and it gets gutted or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be the only way you can get it. So I had no clue he had lung flukes or had anything wrong with him. But the night I hunted, I had 200 on a coon. I don't remember if I won the cast or not, but I do remember the pickup, the man I was riding, I rode with him out there, and the pickup tailgate was 4 foot or better off of the ground. He had to pick his dog up and put it in there, and Zeb just hopped up there just like it was he was still just 3 years old, and hopped up in there like it wasn't anything. So I just put him in my truck when I got back to the club, and I was waiting on Clay to get back because I was going to give him Zeb to hunt. And I think Clay won. He won in the Black and Tan early, so he was going to go back out late. He said, well, get Zeb and put him in my dog box. So I walked out to the truck. I had opened that dog box hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. He come out like a bullet when you open the dog box. I didn't really like that, but that's what he did. He didn't move. He didn't make a sound. I reached in there, and he was as warm as he could be, but he didn't move. So I pulled him out of the dog box, and some man come by and said, what is that, Zeb? I said, yeah. I said, he ain't breathing. I said, can you get Clay? And next thing I know, there's 100 people out there at that, out there around that dog. There's people got down and they blowed in his nose, and he was dead. He was gone right there in that dog box. The place that he hated was the dog box, but he was in it when he died. And, you know, we were within $400 of all-time money winner, and, you know, everything was going on. And, you know, Tam sort of makes a little speech there. We didn't know what happened, but, you know, Tam just says, I hope this dog has died natural and I don't ever find out anything different. But, you know, you didn't know. I mean, you hate to think anything would happen, but we didn't know. So I called Mike. Clay had to stay and hunt in that hunt. And I come home and I called the vet and told him on the autopsy run. And so I met Mike, and Clay showed up, and I remember when they stuck that knife to him for that autopsy, Mike, he tore up like a baby. He could not stand it. But I watched every piece of him cut open, of his liver, his every, you know, stomach, everything. I just wanted to know what happened to the dog. And they sent to the University of Tennessee. Come back that he died of lung flukes. And he had lesions cut in his lungs. He had eggs. You know, it was the second case the University of Tennessee had ever saw. It's more common on the coast where there's, I guess, crawfish, snails, slugs. It was not common here. I would have had no idea how to treat him. Tim Kramer's had one since then. He just treated it with normal worming for about 3 or 4 weeks of some kind of wormer, but we had no clue that was going to happen. And it was just like a complete life change for me, just instantly. I can still show you where he's buried at right now, where he was at. It was just went from daylight to dark. He only had 60 pups, or 61 at that time, and it was just over.
Did you ever think, it sounds like Billy did, 'cause he said the light was shining on him when he was a puppy, but did you ever think that cross would have near as much impact? Or has there even ever been a dog that you can think of that had close to the impact that only had 60-something puppies?
No, to me, Zeb was better than his mother and his daddy both. He got the best out of both of them. Now, most crosses don't happen that way. Most time you'll get a screwed up mouth out of one of them, or you get looks out of another. But for somehow or another, he turned out, to me, my opinion, better than his mother and his daddy. His daddy was a great dog. I'm not taking anything Ronnie Nickens coma. He was great. But just my opinion, for me, I had no clue. I bred the best female that I'd ever had to the best dog that I could find. That was Coma. I liked him better than any dog I'd hunted with, and I hunted every hunt there was for years there. So that's what I wanted, and that's what turned out of it. Now, the whole litter didn't. I mean, they'd all run in tree, but the whole litter didn't turn out that way. And the only reason Moose was born, Moose is his oldest pup, Wipeout Zach, Fergie. We just come in from hunting one night, or coming in, and Fergie said something about Polly being in heat. And we bred her. You know, she's a 3-legged little female, good little old dog till she got a snare, and she's still a good dog after she lost a leg. But, you know, who knew that Moose was going to be, you know, he was, you know, Fergie's worked for me for 31 years. We thought we'd breed Zeb to Polly. Mark Sullivan's worked for me for years. He just called the next litter. He said, you know, I got old fat lady, I think was her name over here. He said, he said, would you breed Zeb? And I said, yeah, I didn't think nothing about it. And then that turned out to be Wipeout Coy. You know, Zeb had a litter of, Doug Compton had Backwater Pearl. She was out of Zeb and a female that I bred over in Arkansas. I think her name was Bonnie, but I'm not a pension. But, Doug, just about everything he had was out of Backwater Pearl, and she was out of Old Zeb. So nearly everybody out of them 60 pups had a lifetime dog. It was unbelievable to carry them young dogs at a certain age. Roy Tramble come down there and hunted and said, we're changing the breeder stakes. He said, we're going to go to hunting 1-year-olds against 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds against 2-year-olds. Pups can't compete. And we carried Moose and Coy. They was about 12 and 13 months old. And he said, I don't know if we need to change that or not. He said, I never seen anything.
Now, Roy's hunting no banker. That was Moose treed the first coon he ever treed that night.
Coy treed about 3.
Yeah.
Coy would compete. But, I didn't know what I was doing, Tyler. All I knew was to breed the best to the best. Now, I've heard other people say that don't work. And I know it don't work,
Every time.
No, Michael Jordan's got brothers and sisters, okay? So they ain't Michael Jordan. Zeb had brothers and sisters. They wasn't Wipeout Zeb. He come out looking like a Michael Jordan, athletic, you just couldn't believe it. And he got his smarts, like Billy was saying about from Nickens, because people would come down there to see him because we were winning everything, and they'd come to see him or come to breed. You had to keep a snap on his pen or he would open it with his nose. So I would ease in and I'd take that snap off without him hearing me. So then when the people come up, we had a pen just like I got, a dog kennel just like I got. And we'd be standing out. We'd walk back outside and they'd say, I'd say, Zeb, come here. So he'd just run over to his pen, take his nose, open the pen up and come outside. They'd say, how do you keep him in? I said, well, I didn't tell him to get out. That's the only time I told him to get out. I didn't tell him I had a snap. So then I'd say, Zeb, get in the truck. He'd run over and he'd jump in tailgate. I said, no, not that truck, Zeb. Jump in that other truck. He'd just jump out. He'd get in the other truck. I said, Zeb, we may go in the boat. Run over and get in the boat. He'd run over and he'd jump up in the boat. And when you let him out, he never used a bathroom in the pen. When you let him out, he went straight to the woods and he used the bathroom. Both of them, 1 and 2. And then he come and he got in the truck. He didn't use a bath because we hunted him every night. So he knew he had his routine. He went straight to the woods when you let him out. He'd empty out. He'd come right straight back, just flying. Intelligence wasn't any, I guess he was smarter than we was when we'd get the gun out at the hunt, showing it to him.
He'd look like a sight. Are they showing this dog? They got to shoot him if he don't do that.
We have at a local hunt, we'd actually shoot. So anything to try to keep him thinking we were going pleasure hunting, because you couldn't beat him pleasure hunting.
You talking about the smartness of those dogs. We was at Washington, Indiana one night at Walker Days, and Nickens, he never tied Coma. Whenever he let Coma out of the dog box at a hunt to use the bathroom or whatever, he never put a lead on him. Me and Kiddy walked over to the truck, and I think Barry or somebody said something to Ronnie, and it said, Coma's over yonder at that McDonald's. And he was across 4 lanes of traffic over there. And Nickens, instead of getting in the truck, driving over to get him, he just hollers, Coma. And they said, Ronnie, you going to get him run over? He said, they not going to run over him. And he come across all 4 lanes of that traffic right straight to that dog box, plumb up on the dog box, and never missed a lick. And
we was at the rules meeting. You used to have a rules meeting at Aurora, and we stayed in them little old Kentucky Lodge cabins. So he turned Coma out, and me and Clay was down there, and he got way off down there where we was at, and I got Coma by the collar. He was right there on top of me anyway. I got him by the collar, and I held him. And Nickens come out of that room, and he's, Coma! Boy, and he jerked me just like he's wanting to go, and I had a hold of him. Coma! And he was wanting to jerk loose. He's wanting to get up there to where Nickens was. And I was holding him. Clay said, you better turn him loose. He's going to beat the dog out of him when he gets up there for not listening. But he turned him in the clubhouse, and Zeb, you could do him the same way. You could put him right in turn him loose. Both of them would be on top of the tables. feet would never quit moving on Coma or Zeb. You didn't see them stand. They moved them feet at all times.
And they passed that on. I mean, Moose would, Snug would, Moose's sister.
And just a thing about Coleman, now Barry and Ferguson going to have to help me here, which Billy may. I want to say Nickens won the nation, twice with Coma, maybe 3 times.
3, I think.
3 times.
I think he won it as a year-old, 2-year-old, and 3-year-old, because I don't think Coma was too old when Ronnie got rid of him.
5.
Yeah. And he had already, I think I'm saying this right. I know he won the state 3 years in a row. Dummy about won it the 93 year. She was actually leading because they used to have Big Addy Purse hunt started in Hardin, in Smithland, I think. And Bill had went down there to Goodrum and won 2 nights and jumped off to a big lead in the state. And because it was that whole year, Candy wasn't even really in the picture. Dummy was way ahead. Ronnie was steadily going. Coma was catching. And one of them months that Clay had come in from a boat and he took her to all these hunts around. We had several clubs right here in a 50-mile radius that we could go to. He just went to winning everywhere.
Oh, he went to hunt them off. He was winning 638s.
Yeah.
And
she
64
went
4 dogs at a hunt.
and she went from nothing to this boom and showed up right behind him. And so it was kind of a race there that whole year, and it was exciting because they was even right up to the last at the World Hunt. That was the very last open event hunt of the year every year, and that thing was big at that year, and there was a lot more money bet on that race. I remember Wilbur and Kelly and a bunch of guys. They had lots of side bets. Who's going to win?
The Calcutta
Coma or Dummy?
Oh yeah.
And Coma pulled it off at that one of them open event hunts at the World Hunt because he passed her at that very last one, I think, and that's how close it became at that year. But here's the thing of that year: Barry had already bred Candy to him. Bill had bred after Candy, maybe a year after Barry had bred Candy to him. Bill bred Dummy to him. And them was the 2 top females bred to the top dog. Well, that started, one started the Wipeout line and the other one started the $1 million line. Bill always called all them dogs he had a Dummy $1 million, and that's where Elmo come. I had one called Jewel. We had one called Casino Girl. That was another line that started right there out of Coma.
Wild Card.
And they was different style dogs. Dummy put a little more. To me, she was like a little yard dog, had a little choppy mouth, and she was special in her own way. She could tree a lot of kind of coons, but she was like I say, it was something to see in them days, just to see what we've experienced, I guess, and me looking back in all these years and how blessed we was to see Zeb and all these dogs that come out of Coma then. I can name several that come out of Coma that was phenomenal dogs back in that Flat Rock Gas.
Koshima.
Flat Rock Cuz, Jerry Frazier had him. All them dogs was special. I mean, they was, like I say, we was just lucky and blessed to see all of it. But, what Zeb has carried on to come up with Moose and Coy and what they carried on, and mainly Moose. I mean, Moose got, and Fergie can tell you, what he done is phenomenal. And that's another whole story. We could sit here and talk all night
we
about
got time.
Oh yeah, about his accomplishments. But
ain't nobody in no hurry here.
We're gonna move on to Coy because those were the next 2 that were kind of big name, Coy and Moose.
I was going to say this a while ago. I remember this because I was staying up here a lot with Barry and Clay, and I think I was actually the night after, or the weeks after Zeb died, I was at Clay's house, and they called Mark, had bred Fat Lady to Zeb and had Coy, and that was the first dog that they bought, first pup out of Zeb that they had bought after Zeb died. And where they come up with a name, Coy, it was Kiddy, Owens, and Young, Koy.
Isn't that something?
Yeah. And he was when you talking about a phenomenal hound when he was a pup, he had probably, I've hunted with a lot of loudmouth dogs. I don't know if I've ever hunted one that had the mouth he had. I mean, he could vibrate. If you turned him loose when he was, I'm saying under a year old, and you turned him loose and got back in the truck, say on a cold night, he would almost vibrate the glass. You didn't have to have the windows down. When he barked, you knew it was him. I mean, he had some kind of mouth. Me and Barry hunted him on a boat several times down there, and you talking about hearing him. He echoed all over the lake down there, but and could move a track like his daddy. You know, I mean, Zell passed in them tracking traits, the nose, I guess, come from Candy and all them. It just kept going, and even today you can. I was in Texas and I think it was Waylon Pierce's little dog give a double chop come treed just like Candy did, and she's got just a little trace of Wipeout in her on her top side. But it's amazing even to today you can hear Candy in these dogs, just that tone, that locate. It's amazing how far it's carried down the line.
I really hope y'all enjoyed that interview as much as I did. If you like what you heard here, go on over to Facebook, give us a like at Coon Hunting U. Also, go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and a review. It really helps us out. And remember, if you need a new hunting light, do not overlook Superior. They make an awesome light, best customer service in the business. Man, their walking light and double red is the brightest I've ever seen. Use coupon code CHU podcast at checkout at nighthunters.com. You can find the link in the description box below this. Coon Hunting University is a product of Audio Hound Productions. Until next time, y'all have a wonderful day.